Hey Phantom Central, this is my full review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you saw my initial reaction video, then you know that I really love this film. I think it's better than the first movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is also a film that I really love. There's a lot I can talk about and unpack with this film, but for this review, I narrowed it down to a few elements that stood out to me when I first watched the film. So without further ado, let's dive in. Firstly, I want to talk about the animation styles in this film because one of the strengths of the first movie was its innovative animation style. This film takes the work done in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to a whole new level. Given that the film goes from one dimension to another, the filmmakers took advantage of the multiverse concept to do something creative, innovative, and imaginative. Each Spider Man's dimension has its own art style and its own animation style, and it was beautiful. Every scene in every Spider Person's dimension was so wonderfully designed, so beautifully designed and carefully animated that it was awe inspiring to watch. This is one of the most visually stunning films I have seen in a long time, not just in the medium of animation, but also compared to a lot of live action films. I guarantee you, you have never seen a movie like this, and you probably won't see a film like this until Spider Man Beyond the Spider Verse comes out. And I love the animation style. It was a gorgeous movie just to look at. The film does have a bigger scale because of the multiverse element and the different dimensions that Miles goes through, but what I love about the film is that the scale doesn't overshadow the character moments, and that's what I want to talk about next. One of the other highlights of the first movie was the relationships between the characters because that was the emotional core of the film. The relationship between Miles and his family and his relationship with Peter B. Parker and Gwen Stacy was integral to that first movie. This film has a stronger emotional core. While the first movie explored the relationship and spent more time with Miles and Peter, this film spends more time developing the relationship between Miles and Gwen. We get a lot more exploration into Gwen's backstory and her as a character. In fact, I will go so far as to say this movie is as much a Gwen Stacy film as it is a Miles Morales film. One of the things I appreciated about the movie is how much time it spends with these characters individually in their own dimensions before they're brought together and before the action and adventure starts. Not a lot of animated films do this, and in fact, not a lot of blockbusters in general do this. They take a good chunk of their runtime spent with these two characters before we get into the main story, and I love that. In talking about the characters, I do have to talk about the introduction of the new Spider-Men and women in this film. Miguel O'Hara, Jessica Drew, Pavitra Prabhakar, and Hobie Brown were great additions to the ever-expanding roster of Spider people in this trilogy. I love these characters. I love what the movie does with them. Not all of them have a lot of screen time, but they all have very important roles, and they are fantastic. I love them all. The Spider Society plays a big role in the film, but we don't get to spend a lot of time with the other characters in the Spider Society. They're more background characters than they are central characters. But whenever I was watching scenes with the Spider Society, I had my eyes peeled to see if one of my favorite Spider-Men or women from the comics was included in the film, and some of them were. The character I was excited to see the most was the Spot. This might sound a bit odd given the fact that it's a Spider-Man movie and it has a lot of Spider people in it, but this character is a very special villain that is near and dear to my heart. I first saw him in an episode of the Spider-Man animated series that was made in the 90s. He was in it for one episode and one episode only. After the show, I realized that he's a D-list villain that never gets used often in the comics, video games, or the other Spider-Man animated series. But I've always thought that if one person took him seriously, he could be a great opponent for Spider-Man, and this movie does just that. It shows us what the Spot is capable of. There are a number of things the filmmakers did with this character that I really loved. Firstly, they lean into the whole underdog nature of the character. Like when he's introduced, Spider-Man himself doesn't take him seriously. He even calls him a villain of the week. And as the movie progresses, they position him as a multiversal threat that the entire Spider Society can't ignore. And I really, really, really love that. The other thing I loved about the movie's use of this character is that he has very little screen time, but his presence looms largely throughout the movie. And whenever a filmmaker can do so much with very little, that speaks volumes to their ability as a filmmaker. And this creative team does so much with the Spot, even though he has very little screen time. The Spot's powers also lend really well to the animation medium, and that was no surprise to me because he was really great in the Spider-Man cartoon, so I knew that his powers were gonna look good in this movie. The filmmakers also find very, very creative uses for this character's powers, and I love that. They also used the character to set up some really powerful emotional stakes in the film. I won't give away what those are, but I will say that I was surprised by that. That caught me off guard, but I loved it so much. Overall, how they used this character was great. I was satisfied and I can't wait to see what they do with him in the next film. I have to talk about the runtime of the movie. The film clocks in at 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is quite long for an animated film, but it was exactly right for this movie. I don't care if people complain about long movies. I love long movies. I heard that there was some behind the scenes conversations that this might be too long of a length for an animated film. Nonsense, because this film was meant to be long, it needed to be long, and it needed to give the time for the characters to develop. And I love the fact that it didn't hold the filmmakers back, it didn't hold the studio back from releasing such a long film. And I'm so thankful that they released the film as long as they did, because the movie also didn't feel long. I never once felt the length of the film. Each scene and each character got the right amount of screen time they needed. Not one sequence was dragged out, nor did I feel like one sequence needed more screen time. I really can't think about one thing that I didn't like about this film. Maybe I'm still in the glow and the excitement of it all, but I really, really can't think about a single nitpick or single criticism. It is a near perfect film. I absolutely love the film. Spider-Man's my favorite Marvel hero. This movie, just like the first film, is very much a love letter to the Spider-Man character and the entire Spider-Man mythology that has been developed over the decades this character has existed. It's probably a perfect film. I don't think I'm ever going to change my mind on that. I give it a 10 out of 10. The question is for you guys. What did you guys think about the film Fandom Central? Did you like it? Did you think it delivered as a sequel? Did you not like it? Whatever your thoughts are, leave the comments down below. If you like this review, click the thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon for notifications. And until I see you next time, Fandom Central, goodbye.